went to school in a village called Brofiedru, which means English is hard or difficult. But I can say that since then I've tried to make up for it, not only in reading. In fact, for example, this year, one of my personal objectives is to read one book a month, but also to write them. I think I'm on my 25th book. So now that I'm Professor Emeritus, that means Professor, I'm moving away from the more academic and more technical into the social, the family life, which has been my concern, personal organization, and writing for children. Interestingly, there's a life cycle. You start having your family, then they go away, and then they come back in multiples with grandchildren. And you enjoy your grandchildren are the most enjoyable things in the whole world because you enjoy them without the responsibility of paying school fees. And that's why, as an economist, it becomes quite interesting. When I want to buy ice creams and other things for my grandchildren, my children are afraid. I say, no, that's not my responsibility to train my grandchildren. Mine is to enjoy them and spoil them. Yours is to train them and discipline them and pay school fees. And they will always remember me as the nice fellow. Because if you don't train them, there will be a trouble on your hand, and I will be gone. Let me thank the organizers for their invitation. I don't know where I stand with book trade, but if you are a publisher, you are not a publisher, but a writer, you depend on a lot of people in the book chain. For example, when I write my Shire English, that means the English from my village of Shiromwasi, then I take it to the editors. In fact, the people think that your people edit it. Before it comes, it has been edited before, because if you see my English, you may not want to consider my text. And when they bring it back, it has been my custom to make sure that my assistants input all the changes before I read it. Because the first time I look at it, every page, they had made about 30 or so marks without respect for their seniors. Then you go, before I go to the publishers, and they go through the rigmarole, then them. So I have had a lot of joy with those in the publishing industry. And of course, I'm a teacher, not a professor like you. A teacher is a proper, if you have taught in primary school, you are not a teacher. From you also training college, teaching in the primary school, to now trying to grade the papers of PhD students. But so, when you are a teacher, you have a different attitude. That's why they are trying to make the university lecturers now become teachers, not lecturers. And I like the labels I surround. If you can read this, thank a teacher. In my naughty moments, I say that when I see so many functionally illiterate people around, what do? The teachers don't want to be blamed. I will say that now let's have a new slogan. If you see a child who cannot read, blame a teacher. It's very important that we get people reading. Given the number of speeches, let me jump over a few of mine. I personally think that getting our people literate is so important, not only for their personal development, but for the good of this country. Literacy has been found to be probably the single most important life-changing event for the ordinary person. Of course, as a preacher, I believe that the greatest of them all is trusting Jesus as your Lord and Savior, but that's a different realm. It is known that literacy gives best chance to change your personal, social situation. It increases your level of political engagement. And of course, definitely, of great economic benefits, because it's like tonic. You use it as a base for almost every other thing. Acquisition of knowledge and skills thereafter, and there also improves your chances of being employed and having higher income for the rest of your life. I believe that if we knew the importance of literacy, we will do far less of other things and more of getting children to be literate. At the risk of being saying I'm self-centered, let me tell you that I had 4 children. And I will later on share the pedagogy I used. All the 4 children were totally literate at the age of 6. They could read any book. It doesn't matter whether it was a medical book or physics book. They may not understand all the concepts, but they were totally literate. As a result, I don't remember one day ever supervising the homework of my children. Not once. Secondly, none of my children ever had an afternoon class or a special tutor. Never. And today, all 4 of them are accomplished scientists. A medical consultant, an engineer who did both engineering and commerce 2 degrees in the same time as people do their first degrees. A leading science teacher in Australia is one of them, whose class topped the whole country biology class last year. So it's not a mean achievement. And one who is an electrical electronic engineering, but shifted to ICT. Why? Were they superhumans? No. In fact, when I told some of my friends when the children were younger, my method of teaching them, all of them, typical Ghanaians, they took the negative. Oh, because you are a teacher and your wife is a teacher, that is why. I says, please, excuse me, could you shut up and try the method on your children? And everyone who did it got the same result. So it is not because some children are daft and some are better, but some got the head start of being literate before they entered school. One of the things I must apologize is that since my children grew up and with all the other engagements, I forgot to pass it on. Now that I've gotten my grandchildren, I'm repenting and now going to, because I have to now help Ghanaian children also to enjoy it. And therefore, hopefully by December, I'm coming up with 6 books and pedagogy, how to teach children, why the average child will be literate at the age of maximum 6. Averagely, they will be literate at 5. Let me share 2 things. Children are far more smarter than we are called them. Within 3 years, whether they are Chinese, Indian, Malian, or Russian, they are able to pick and understand and speak the language of their mother tongue. That is how smart they are. And they learned it by themselves because all the parents tried to teach them, excuse me to say, we're all stupid. Dada, instead of telling him father, mama, in other words. And so very soon they think that, the adults are stupid, so this is the right way to speak. And soon they pick it up. And they get the grammar correct and everything in 3 years. Isn't it a miracle? That's the part of God's wonder in creating us as humans. Then, of course, I went to Teachers College. I was taught how much to do to teach people to read, the alphabets, the diphthongs, the vowels and everything else, which immediately, of course, put me out of gear because it was so confusing. I hated English all my life. And I must have passed my O-level with a half a mark E. It's okay, you can become So when I had my first child, I'm a Christian and I went to you publishers. This Lady Bird books is quite everywhere with the cards. Almost instantly, whether by inspiration or whatever you call it, I knew that that is the key of teaching children how to read. But there are certain things you must avoid. Never teach them alphabets, never teach them vowels, never teach them diphthongs and all those crazy things, Then later on they say syntax and all those type of things. But one of the things which was a revelation is that never teach any child with a photograph. We have orange, and beside that we write O-R-A-N-G. Why? Because the orange it's more attractive. The picture of an orange is the one that gets into their mind, not O-R-A-N-G-E. Or heart. That's what we do. All that you have to do is to use the cards alone. This is what the Lady Bears didn't know, and which I'm now going to get it ready if I get a good publisher. I'm looking at my publisher's face. He has to come up better because we are going to publish with a very small margin, maximum of a CD per book, because the rest, I want it to become a national crusade. So if you show a card with O-R-A-N-G-E on it to a child, and you say orange, the brain registers that as orange. And interestingly, the average child can learn 10 words in a day. And once they have gotten through a book with all the words in it, after you finish, you give the child the book. He's able to read it. And they are so smart, and I'm talking about all the children, not my children, are so smart that by the time they have learned 400 words, so that's how short it is, and they have read books that have been specially written based upon those words, they have actually learned by themselves. You don't have to teach them all the vowels, the diphthongs, and the combinations. The good thing is that thereafter, they were able to now read words which you haven't taught them. And if you take the English language, my research shows that there are only about 1,500 words we use 85% of the time. And therefore, the average child becomes literate in 3 months, maximum 6. And they are literate forever, ever. 2 Christmas ago, my grand 5-year visitors, and she wasn't reading. Of course, he was able to go to computer and do a lot more things than I can do. And I says, no, this my granddaughter she'll read. I spent only 1 month with her. She became literate with this simple method. The only thing is that about 3 months after, I got a WhatsApp snap from the mother. Understand, she was eating and reading and had to go to school. The mother, as usual, please put it as the book aside and let us eat and let's go. Apparently, the child got angry but went to school. When he came back, he had written a letter to the mother, 6 years old, a little under 6. And the letter says, I have had enough. If you do that again, I'm going to leave this house. The only thing I found in it that enough was spelled ENAFF. But for a 6-year-old, that is 95% pass. So we had to, they called me Papa, I had to say that, look, this is not the way we treat mommy when he wants to help you to go to school. And yet, last month, I went to my village we have a secondary school there to help the people in the community. They were doing an entrance examination, and a 9th grader, BECE, passed. And that's the reason why in my school we don't accept BECE as an entrance, because the majority of them are fake. They are taught to cheat and other things and help to pass. So that the semi-illiterates, actually almost illiterates in my village, have passed BECE. And one of them was to fill the form so that we take them and we spend about a year to bring them up. But write your village's name, just 2 villages from mine. You know, you told the person, it was even told in tree. He said, Adei mean to mean super. For those who don't understand, he comes from a village called Adei, Adeimbra. Had been in school for 9 years. Write your village's name. He said that I cannot spell Adeimbra. What a damage and waste of a child's life. And is this Stephen Adei's exaggeration? No. The World Bank World Development Report last year was on schooling. And you know what it says about Ghana? Public schools. They are schooling without learning. They go to school without learning. I believe that one of the greatest epidemics in our is producing generation after generation of illiterate, functionally illiterate people. And that is why they don't read. When a child becomes literate early, reading becomes part of their culture. When my oldest son was 6 years, I went to Challenge Bookshop, both in Accra, because the bookshop manager then was my friend. And so we chatted for about 30 minutes. While we were chatting, my son had taken an adult book from the shelf and read it, about 100 or so pages. He read it in that period. Because if you use this method to teach children to read, they don't read like me and you. All my children read 4 times faster than me. And when they laugh at me, do you know what I tell them? I had an illiterate parents. Thank God you had a teacher's parents. So don't that. I'm proud of myself. So when we were going, I said, Stephen, put the book back on the shelf. Because honestly, I didn't think that he could have read the book in that short time with comprehension. So my friend said, oh, no, Stephen, I'm also Stephen. So Stephen, let him go with it. And when he reads it, he can take it. He says, oh, I've read it, I don't need to take it. Then the bookshop manager, who was then challenge head, said, I will test you. Apparently he had read the book. Tested him on the book. And lo and behold, he knew the content. So he was given he said that, Stephen, never buy a book here for your child. You can always come and take the book, let's read it, and bring it back and put it on the shelf. So I never bought any book for my children. Why? Because, of course, you wouldn't have that liberty because you would like to get that money too. I believe that creating a literate population is of great importance. Whether you are talking about social engagement, family life, national development, is an important key. My boss, when I was the chief of the Regional Bureau for Africa of UNDP in New York, Pierre Cravadamiba said, you know, the best condom in the world is educating the girl child. And that is what literacy does. It changes the whole dynamics. But for development purposes, the most important ingredient in development is the human being, and by extension, the human mind. The human being is both the means and the end of development. And when you change their mindset, when they acquire the skills and the ability to read and write and acquire functional skills, then you can improve national productivity. They become the, excuse me for my economic word, the raw materials of development. The difference is that they are both the raw material and the end results and the beneficiary of development. It is therefore important for us to pursue functional development for children. At this moment, I have no problem with adult education, but you can do for a child to be literate in 6 months. It takes a while. You try to get an adult to learn. So we may have to still expand their horizon, but I want us to focus on the children, let them become literate, let them get reading culture, and they fit as individuals. The book trade will benefit as an industry, and Ghana will benefit in terms of development. I would therefore like to thank you again for this, to ourselves as a nation, to make literacy our #1 priority. And if we do, the effect will be gargantuan. I trust that you'll join me also after December on this national crusade to get every Ghanaian child to be literate at 6 years. Thank you.